is Danny Abbas, and today I'll be explaining why I think Canada is a better place than it was before. I've always wondered how life in Canada was back then and how it compares to life now. Many things have changed since the past for the better, and I believe Canada is a better place now for the following reasons. Civil and equality rights. Early Canada was very different. People were discriminated due to their skin tone, religious beliefs, and sexuality. Homosexual people have lost their jobs and were mistreated for that. Canada realized this was wrong at the time and went on and implemented the Canadian Human Rights Act and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms in an attempt to make everyone feel equal. Canadian human rights was passed in 1977, making it illegal for federal regulated employers and service providers to even discriminate people or treat them unfairly based on certain grounds such as sex, sexual orientation, and race. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom was established in 1982. The charter assures certain political to Canadian citizens and civil rights forever in Canada. Women in Canadian history were a very important topic. In 1914, women were expected to be housewives and do all the housework, and men were expected to do all the work outside. So therefore, this just explains that society wasn't open and it wasn't free and it wasn't accepting of women working outside their houses. So when World War I came around, many women wanted to go and help in the war, but they only had two jobs that were allowed. So either to be a nurse or to be an ambulance driver, and many of them have worked in these jobs. During the time World War I was happening, and many women, as I said, were in war helping men and being nurses and ambulance drivers, many women back home were still there helping to take care of the country after many men left for the army. So therefore, at the time, women weren't allowed to vote. So in 1916, Manitoba women won the right to vote. And in 1918, the government changed the law. The Dominion elections were going to happen, and the law was if you're age 21 plus or you're an adult, you were allowed to vote if you're a male or a female and you're a Canadian citizen. However, as I said, you have to be a Canadian citizen, so many Indian and First Nations people were not allowed to vote. So after many years, in 1960, First Nations and Indians received the right to vote in federal elections. Overall, in this category, I believe Canada has developed as a country and became way more accepting than others as a society and is accepting immigrants and the freedom women had. Canada's healthcare had a very long journey until Canada reached what it wants. Many diseases were around Canada and deaths have happened. Here is a series of events that happened and led healthcare to where it is today. 1918 to 1920, the Spanish flu has came to Canada and worldwide too, but mostly Canada. A lot of soldiers have come back from war and their immune systems were very weak. That's why it caused many deaths. It was an unusual deadly influenza. At the time, Canada received help from CNIB, which is a health organization, and they provided support and healthcare assistance for people with visual impairment and vision loss, and people with the Spanish flu too. From 1929 to 1939, the Great Depression has come to Canada. The stock market fell and families could no longer support themselves. They looked to the government for providing reasonable standards of living and acceptable access to basic services including healthcare, but the government couldn't help much. In 1934, the government of Newfoundland developed cottage hospitals and medical care plans where a small network of hospitals and paid doctors or nurses traveled to poor communities. Families would have to pay $10 to use the cottage hospital, immunization, prenatal infant care, and client home follow-up. These cottage hospitals involved about 1,500 communities. World War II, the middle class felt this the worst. The rich could afford health care while the poor relied on charities. Shift from home to hospital-based care created more need for organized health care. Nowadays, something Canada is known for is its free healthcare, and that's very good. So, therefore, I say that Canada has become a better country than before in healthcare. Now, moving on to the immigration laws. In 1914, 376 people from India aboard the immigrant ship Komagata Maru languished in Vancouver Harbor while Canadian authorities debated what to do with them. After exactly 2 months later, Canada New Navy, in action for the first time, escorted the ship from the Canadian waters on 23rd of July, while many Vancouver residents cheered approvingly from the shore. Talking about the Chinese Immigration Act in 1923, also known as the Chinese Execution Act, it was replaced by the legislation that virtually suspended Chinese immigration on the day known to the Canadian Chinese as Humiliation Day. This discriminatory legislation would not be repealed until 1947. Pier 21 opened in Halifax, the point of entry for some 1 million immigrants into Canada and the point of departure for nearly 500,000 soldiers in the Second World War. It has often been called the Gateway to Canada. Today, it is a National Historic Site and a museum, and it opened in 1928. The past three are just examples of immigration situations Canada have went through, but there's many more. Today's immigration laws are now much better. It brings missing qualities into the population of Canada to make the economy better, and it's getting better. And Canada's population needs more immigrants. So yes, I think Canada's immigration laws are way better than they used to be before. The story of Canada from 1867 to now is in many ways a good turnout. For centuries, people of different languages, cultures, backgrounds, and lifestyles come together in the northern areas of Canada. They built a society where regional communities would grow and thrive, unite, and become one as Canadians. There were steps along the way that caused struggling times for Canada, including the hard time for the Aboriginals and the present tensions over federal unity. But for the most part, Canada becomes an example to the world of an up-to-date, modern society which we live in today. Therefore, I believe that Canada is a better place now than it was before.